working. So the first thing that we need to get out of the way is understanding the terms internet and web. So go ahead and pause the video for a second and think about what these two terms mean to you. Do they mean one thing, or do they refer to two different things? And if that's the case, then what exactly do they refer to? Okay, so to help you understand this, because students tend to have difficulty understanding the distinction between the two, let's take the following scenario. Let's say you go to your computer and you uninstall all the web browsers that you have. If you have Chrome, you uninstall it, Microsoft Edge, you uninstall, and so on. So you leave no browser whatsoever. Now, with that being the case, let me ask you the following. Let's say you happen to have Outlook. You use Outlook for email exchanges. Now, oftentimes people use the browser to access their email. So for example, if they wanted to access their Gmail, they open the browser, they do www.gmail.com, and that's how they access their email. But actually some people, especially in companies and organizations, they prefer to use a standalone application for managing their email because it offers them capabilities for organizing their email that aren't available through a web interface. So with our browser being uninstalled, would you still be able to use something such as Outlook to access your email, or no? Continuing with the same example, let's say we uninstall the browser from your mobile device. And the question is, would you still be able to have a FaceTime conversation with somebody else? Or would you be able to use Skype to have a video chat with someone, or something such as Viber? The answer to all these questions is yes. Even though you uninstall the browser, which means you can no longer browse the net, quote unquote, you're still able to use some other applications such as FaceTime, Viber, Skype, and so on. Now let's take a variant scenario. Let's say we go back and install the browser on the computer and the mobile device, but instead now let's go ahead and maybe cut off our connection. Maybe we turn off the wireless router on our home network, or maybe we turn our mobile device to airplane mode. Now, back to the same questions. Would you still be able to have a FaceTime conversation? Would you still be able to use something such as Outlook? And the answer to all these questions is no. So that hopefully should help you understand the distinction between the two. When you uninstall the browser, what you did was you took away your ability to browse the web. On the other hand, when you cut off your internet connection, what you cut off was the internet. So to help you better understand this, the web is one application that runs over the internet. Another would be email through something such as Outlook. A third would be online gaming. A fourth would be file transfer using the file transfer protocol, and so on. Now, whenever I show students something such as this, they come up with a statement that goes something like, web is a subset of the internet, and that is wrong, because you're comparing oranges and apples. We do not talk about the web as a subset of the internet. This would be like saying Microsoft Word is a subset of a computer. No, Microsoft Word is a subset of computer applications. It's one application that runs over a computer. A computer is a hard disk drive, a computer is a motherboard, and so on. So these are the components of a computer. You cannot say Microsoft Word is a subset of a computer. It's a subset of computer applications. Likewise, when we talk about the web is a subset of applications that run over the internet. So to reinforce the same concept, actually in terms of timeline, the internet was developed back in 1969, and it pretty much has no resemblance to the internet of today. It was mostly used for email exchange and text-based systems. It was used for connecting different universities, and that's how the internet started. In contrast, the web wasn't proposed until 1990, and it started being deployed over the internet around 91 to 92. So as you can see, while the internet goes back all the way to 1969, the web, on the other hand, wasn't developed until 1990. So again, one application, previous applications that used to run between the 1969 to 1990, all these 20 years, people were mostly relying on email and text-based exchanges for document sharing. Okay, so you might be asking, okay, what exactly is the web? You have an intuitive understanding of what it is, but basically it's a system for information management that uses hypertext to link different documents. Let's say you take a book. It can be a bound book. That's one form of presentation, like a hard copy book. But then you can take the same thing and you can create a website out of it, where you have the main page of the website as a table of contents that has chapter 1, chapter 2, and so on. And then you click on chapter 1 and it opens a separate page. And now you have the contents of chapter 1. And then you have section 1, section 2, and so on. And then toward the end of the page, maybe you can have go back, meaning go back to the table of contents. So as you can see, this ability to have documents that refer to one another through hypertext is what we refer to as the web. So as you can see, when you have something such as FaceTime, that's not an example of web. Why? Because it doesn't rely on documents linking to each other. So hopefully this clarifies to you the distinction between the internet and the web. So that's the web. What is the internet? Well, the internet, what's in a name? First of all, internet comes from the word inter-network. Okay, and inter means between. So it's like a network between networks. So you can think of the internet as a global network consisting of multiple networks that have been connected together. So you can have like a mobile network, a national or global ISP, and then you have regional ones, and all of these are connected to each other, and that would be the internet. So in terms of the nuts and bolts of the internet, you can think of it basically as this network that's implemented using millions of copper wire and fiber optic cables, connecting millions of server computers, probably having an equal number of routers, switches, wireless access points, firewalls, and so on. And then you have thousands and thousands of air conditioning units and server rooms and buildings, to support cloud computing. So a zoomed-in view of what the nuts and bolts of the internet are. Think about your internet connection at home. You might have a wireless router which connects you to maybe a cable modem, like a broadband modem, and that is basically eventually coming out of your house, connects to, if it's a fiber optic connection, fiber junction boxes, and these eventually connect to a cable modem termination system, and then to master head end, and then to the rest of the internet. Connection to the internet, and then what's going to happen is basically here's your home. Okay, you connect to a local ISP. Then where does that go? Well, a local ISP typically connects to what's called a tier 2 ISP, and then a tier 2 ISP is connected to a tier 1 ISP, and these tier 1 ISPs, these are the big ones. Basically, these are the international or more than regional areas, and these constitute the backbone of the internet. So as you can see, you started with someone who's connected to a local ISP, but then eventually they can be connected to someone maybe on the other end of the globe. So hopefully this clarifies to you the difference between the internet, which is this network of networks consisting of fiber optic cables, wireless connections, and so on. And then you can make use of this network to have different sorts of applications, including the web, but a whole bunch of other ones. Now, once you move, of course, continuing with your internet connection, you might be wondering, okay, within the US, I have this, but then what happens? Well, then you have these fiber optic cables. They're called transoceanic cables, which run actually underneath the ocean to connect to other continents and the rest of the world. Now, the internet isn't just the nuts and bolts. It's not just the physical hardware. Okay, there is more to it, because if I have a whole bunch of networks and each one speaks its own language, how can they talk to each other? And the way you they're able to communicate by using standardized methods that we call protocols. A protocol is a very simple thing. Just take this example. If you wanted to describe the protocol for asking for the time of day, you would begin by greeting someone, and then when they respond to you, you can ask for the time, and then they would respond to you. So obviously there's this protocol that we always follow without even thinking about it, and computer networks, to be able to talk to each other, they have very exact methods that are described that they need to adhere to be able to speak the internet language, meaning they need to implement these protocols to have this interoperability between them. So this is the purpose of this video, which is to have a basic understanding of what we mean by web, and that it's not the same as the internet, to have an understanding of what the internet is and how the two relate to each other.